Now, quickly, you might be aware of what to look for, but let's go through some of the strategies, right, that we need to apply when we attempt a fill in the blank question type. What are some of the strategies? Simple. I will focus on, I'm going to quickly write it down, right? So one of the first strategies is you focus on surrounding context, right? So when I say surrounding context, I'm talking about the word before and after the blank, right? Where I can apply grouping of words. I know this word has to go with this word, right? I also look at the meaning that the context is giving me. What meaning that the context gives? Is it giving me a positive or a negative meaning? Why do I need this? Then it will help me choose the appropriate word for that concept or for the context. What are the strategy I can apply? I can also look for clue words and keywords as usual. Yes? And we will also be sometimes need to apply basic grammar constructions. Word class, tense, idioms, phrasal verbs, right? Now let's look at the first question that we have here. She maintained that her mother's illness was the reason for the dash of her health. So what strategy are we applying here? We're looking at the context. Is it giving me a positive or a negative meaning? What's the key word here? Illness. What is the meaning that the context is giving? A negative meaning, right? We're talking about illness, the reason for this person's health probably is not improving or whatever. So let's look at our options. I have option 1, improvement, then I have fall, then I have deterioration, then I have recuperation, and I have growth, right? So Vikram, correct. It's a negative meaning, right? The context. So what can I quickly eliminate? I can quickly eliminate option 1, option 5, and option 4. I don't need all those words. All of them are positive words. She maintained that her mother's illness was the reason for, not the fall of her health. Again, we're looking at grouping of words, right? What word usually sounds right? Deterioration of her health, right? What is the meaning of that? To grow worse, to become worse, right? To weaken. So we know this is our answer. So what have we basically done here? We've applied 2 strategies here. We've looked at the context. We looked at keyword, illness. We knew we need a negative word in the context, right? We looked at the meaning that the context is giving. We eliminated wrong answer choices and we arrived at the right answer. Now, even if we are confused again between 2 options, we applied grouping of words. In fact, we applied 3 strategies in just this one question, right? Again, recuperate also means to recover, to regain back, to restore yourself back to good health. That's also a positive word, recuperation, for those of you who didn't know the meaning of that word. Bringing dash black money was an avowed electoral aim of Narendra Modi. Bringing dash black money was an avowed electoral aim of Narendra Modi. What are my options? Forth, back, about, in, off. So everybody comes back and says it's option 2. Why? I mean, if I apply grouping of words, I know I'm familiar with bringing forth. I'm familiar with bringing about. These are all also grouping of words, right? I've heard people use this in various contexts. Bringing in, why not? The only thing that doesn't go is off. I'll eliminate this. It doesn't sound right. Bringing off black money doesn't make sense, contextually or grammatically. But all of these are also grouping of words along with bringing back, which is pretty straightforward. and logically, right? So, but what does all the other things mean? So Kumar says was in news. That's another advantage, right? If you're in the habit of reading, like I said, most of these fill in the blank statements are just from the news, right? Not that you will, hopefully you will remember what you read, right? And so you'll be able to recollect. So in case you get stuck or confused, but otherwise, so let's quickly address all of these grouping of words just to make sure we know that option 2 is the right answer. So bringing forth means what? Actually to produce, to give rise to. Is that the meaning that we need in this context? No. Right? Like plants produce fruits, right? That's not the meaning we need here. Bringing about means what? You can bring about a change. So something that takes place or happens, right? To cause to happen. So is that the meaning that I need in this context? Bringing about. Like a speech, somebody's speech can bring a change. Steve Jobs' speech can bring a change in the public opinion, right? Is that the meaning we need in this context? No. To bring in means what? Phrasal verbs have various meanings in various contexts. So bring in, it could be, to give or submit to a court, like a verdict, right? Is that the meaning I need in this context? No. But what do I mean? I just need a straightforward meaning. Bringing back black money was an avowed. What is this? What is this word? I'm not familiar with this word. It's a new word. I don't know what that word is. Something that's openly declared. So that's what Narendra Modi said. He openly declared that this is in my agenda. This is what I intend to do. Bring back black money. That's my aim. That's my goal. Right? So award means something that's openly declared or publicly acknowledged. So you know the meaning of that word also in case if that is hindering your understanding. The answer is bringing back black money was an award electoral aim of Narendra Modi. Right? Most of you got it right. But like I said, if you're still confused, if you're looking at the options and you're saying, hey, why not bringing forth or why not bringing about or why not bringing in? It's not the right meaning in this context. 15 districts may be reeling drought, but the state government is ready to splurge around 20 crore on celebrating Chief Minister's 10 years in office. What are my options? In, for, on, about, under. Again, I am paying attention to, obviously, the word before the blank, right? That's a verb, action verb. I need to look at which one goes with this. Reeling in, reeling for, reeling on, reeling about, reeling under. What am I applying here? Pretty simple. Grouping of words, right? The context itself and looking at the options, you have to apply grouping of words. So what are you saying? All of you are coming back and saying under, which is right. To reel under. What is it? That means what? What is the meaning of this? When you say you reel under, you basically suffering. Yes, that is correct, Vikram, you're right. Right? So when you say reel under something, you're talking about you're suffering because of some burden. To suffer because of a burden, a difficulty, a hard time. Right? So in this context, what's my clue? This is my clue. Right? Drought. 15 districts may be reeling under drought, suffering because as a reason of the drought, but the state government is ready to splurge around. So whatever compensation the government is trying to do for that in order to bring back or restore the situation. Right? That's it. Grouping of words. If you're familiar with this, you will pick the right option. If not, you will lose a mark. Indian High Commission in Canada has not so far made available information on expenses dash for the PM's security. Again, what are we applying? Grouping of words. So we need to focus on the word before the blank, expenses, expenses incurred, expenses got, expenses met, expenses done, or expenses costly. What's it going to be? What are we familiar with? What do we hear people say repeatedly in different situations? Right? What is the meaning of this? To incur. So you're bringing upon yourself, right? You're becoming liable to. You make yourself subject to that. Right? That's what to incur something means. So if you're somebody who smokes, you're incurring a great danger to your health. Right? Just to give you a example. So here, what is the context talking about? So some expenses that have been incurred for the PM's security. Grouping of words, answer is 1, expenses incurred. Right? Dash to the popular proverb, public memory in Bihar is not really short. So this again is, we're looking at grouping of words, a phrase. What's the answer here? Dash to the popular proverb, public memory in Bihar is not really short. So obviously we know that something is contradicting this. Maybe this is what the saying is. Usually what people believe is public memory in Bihar is short. Right? But that's not the case. So obviously I need something very, very in contrast, in opposition to that. Right? And the closest option is contrary, not familiar. Aarti? Right? Look, so understand the context. What's the context? Public memory in Bihar is not really short. So dash to the popular proverb. The popular proverb is public memory in Bihar is really short, but that's not the case. So I need a word that brings in a contrast. So obviously, it cannot be comparable, similar or familiar. And opposite, we don't say opposite to the popular proverb, right? What's the usual grouping of word? Contrary to the popular proverb. Contrary to what this person thinks or this person says, this is what the actual situation is. Right? So you know it's option 4. So most of our fill in the blanks, what we've basically done is understood the context, what meaning it's giving, either a clue word or a keyword has helped us, and then we mostly applied grouping of words. Right? This is again, if you're in the habit of reading, you should be able to easily identify answer choices. Let's read the question. The book Panchatantra teaches the 5 strategies of life dash many fables. The book Panchatantra teaches the 5 strategies of life dash many fables. And the options that we have is in, about, through, on, and beyond. Right? What's a common thing in all of these options? All of them are prepositions. Right? The book Panchatantra teaches the 5 strategies of life dash many fables. We know that prepositions complete the meaning of the sentence. So, but we also know that prepositions, because they complete the meaning, they give meaning to the context. So we need to identify the right preposition that gives the right meaning in this context. So let's understand what the context is saying. What meaning is the context giving? So this particular book, it teaches the 5 strategies of life. How? By the means of fables. Using fables, it's taught, right? So if you look at it, I came up with 2 of my own words. I said using fables or by the means of. So looking at the options, which preposition do you think brings in that meaning? So I've used substitution method. So which of the options do you think is the answer? So obviously the preposition that is giving us the right meaning is option C, through, right? By the means of or using. So Veena is correct. So this one seems pretty easy. Let's look at another one. We take students of the science club to different nature parks almost every month. So your options are hardly, although, suddenly, regularly, nearly. So which do you think is the answer? Let me give you a clue in the context, right? Remember I said the other strategy is there are highlighting keywords or clue words in the context. So one of the highlighting keywords in this context is, or key phrase is, almost every month. So keeping this key phrase in mind, looking at the options, which ones do you think? It says, we take students of the science club to different nature parks almost every month, which means we're talking about, it happens on a regular basis, right? So hardly, although, suddenly, regularly, nearly, we know for sure it has to be regularly. And hardly is barely, right? You're talking about, I could barely hear him or her speaking. So hardly is a completely different meaning. Although is a contrast clue word, doesn't fit in this context. Suddenly would not fit because we have almost every month, right? And nearly also means almost, right? So if I say he worked there for nearly 5 years, which means for almost 5 years this person worked in this particular organization, and that's not the meaning that this context is giving, right? The famous singer dashed his success to his father's guidance. So the options are credits, accounts, pertains, attributes, and contributes. The famous singer dashed his success to his father's guidance. So basically he wants to ensure that wants to let everybody know that the reason for his success is because his father guided him specifically or in a particular fashion, right? That's what the context is saying. So having said that, which one of these 5 options do you think will fit the context? So it's important for us to understand the meaning that the context is giving. The first one we applied substitution method. The second one we looked at key phrases from the context that helped us. We're looking at the third sentence, right? So it's important for us to understand the meaning of these words and the options as well, right? So I have credits, accounts, pertains, attributes, and contributes. So if I look at credits, it's basically, let me give you an example sentence. If I say I bought my stereo on credit, right? It's basically an arrangement for deferred payment of a loan. And in this case, in this example that I gave, it's purchase, right? Accounts, pertains. Pertains is to have relevance, right? To relate to something. Is that what the context is giving? What about attributes? So you can attribute your success, some of them attribute their success to luck. You can attribute your intelligence to whomever, right? It could be a colleague, it could be a parent. So in this context, what are we talking about? And contributes, we know. Contributing is, giving to a common fund, right? For a common purpose. So having looked at the meaning that these options are giving, what do you think is the response? Okay, so the right response here is attributes. The famous singer attributes his success to his father's guidance, right? So other examples I said, they attribute their success to external causes such as luck. So when you say attribute, you're talking about the characteristic, of the person, thing or group indicated. So in this context, he is referring, or he is saying my success is because of my father, right? A certain specific way in which he guided me, some of his characteristics, or something that he specifically did or guided me in, helped me in my success. Everything cannot be left to fate. We must also do dash hard work. My options are simple, little, lot, large, ample. Everything cannot be left to fate. We must also do dash hard work. So given the options, if we look at the options, they're not very difficult words, right? Pretty simple, easy to understand words. But looking at the meaning that the context is giving, which one do you think fits the blank and completes the sentence meaningfully? Is it simple hard work? Is it little hard work? Is it lot hard work, large hard work, or ample hard work? Certain words you realize that you have to, attach it with a preposition, right? A lot of. And definitely, we're not saying, also keep in mind grouping of words, right? Certain words just don't go. Like, for example, simple hard work or little hard work. Or not little, large hard work, right? So here, if I have to come up with my own word to complete the sentence, I'm again using substitution method. Everything cannot be left to fate. We must also do some amount of hard work or sufficient hard work, right? Sufficient enough to meet that particular purpose or need. So having said that, if I say we must also do sufficient, or the amount that is required to meet that particular purpose or need. So this meaning is only given in option E, ample. Everything cannot be left to fate. We must also do ample hard work. Here again, we applied substitution method, coming up with your own word, completing the meaning of the sentence, looking at the options and choosing the one that is closely related to the one you came up with, right? So we must do ample hard work. So keep in mind the strategies that we discussed initially, right? We are applying the same strategies throughout. Whom would you prefer dash the two of us? Options: among, of, between, to, in. This is a tricky one. I want you to pay attention to certain specific key word in the context and then choose your answer. So before you arrive at the answer, I want you to look at what is the highlighting word in the context. Whom would you prefer dash the two of us? Here we are looking at keyword in the context and then arriving at the answer. So just to let you know, let me give you that edge. The keyword is prefer. Now choose your option wisely. Among, of, between, to, or in. So what we also need to keep in mind is the keyword that I highlighted, which is prefer, right? So when you say prefer always attaches itself to the preposition to, right? So whom would you prefer to? The two of us. Though most likely most of us will choose between, keeping in mind to. However, you need to also understand that prefer always comes with or always is followed with the preposition to. So keeping that in mind, the answer option to this is option D. Whom would you prefer to? The two of us. Yeah. So something that we will overlook when we have a choice. Right? It's not just some of you might come back and argue, prefer to is used only in assertive statements and not in questions, which is incorrect, right? So do you prefer tea to coffee, right? So you do have prefer coming in interrogative questions as well. And always remember, when you have prefer, you can just blindly choose the preposition to. He has never permitted dash never will permit such practices in his office. The options are or, not, and not, never. He has never permitted. So in fact, I'm looking at the options. B and D are repeated. B is in fact nor, N-O-R, and not N-O-T. So I want you to just, one of the other ways, we discussed substitution method, but one of the other ways in which you can arrive at the answer is just applying each of those words in the blank, right? So he has never permitted or never will permit. He has never permitted nor never will permit. He has never permitted and never will permit. He has never permitted not never will permit. He has never permitted never. That's definitely out of the question, right? So we can safely eliminate option E and D because it doesn't sound right. So the only option that we've left with is or, nor, and. Now if you look at the three options, when I have or and nor, I need to have the parallel construction, right? So when I have either, then it makes sense for me to have or. When I have neither, then it makes sense for me to have nor. So I can't apply both of this because both are not there in the context. Either is not there, neither is not there. I'm left with option C. He has never permitted and never will permit such practices in his office. So basically it's reiterating that this person has not done this in his past, done this in the past, and he's not going to do this going forward as well. Right? So he has never permitted such practices and he will not permit such practices in the future. Will permit, right? Nor has he done this in the past, nor is he planning to continue this in the future. So the right conjunction in this context would be and. The outgoing committee handed dash all the documents to the new members. The outgoing committee handed dash all the documents to the new members. The options are upon, into, over, in, on. So looking at the options, right, I want you to apply. So remember I said look at words before and after the blank, right? So in this blank, the verb handed, and then there's a blank. So the reason why we focus on words surrounding the blank is it will help us with collocations, which is nothing but grouping of words. So the outgoing committee handed over all the documents to the new members. So the context is actually giving you the meaning where somebody was responsible for this earlier. Now we have new members in the picture, right? So when you say hand over, which is a phrasal verb in fact, right? So hand over means you are shifting or giving the responsibility to someone else. That's what handover means, right? So in that sense, it's good for us to understand the meaning of certain phrasal verbs. That will help us. So in the context, handover is to give the responsibility to so-and-so. So we paid attention to the context. We focused on the key phrase, that is, these documents are being given or, given to the new members, which means this particular responsibility that the outgoing committee had with the documents has been given to or handed over to the new members. So give the responsibility which could be either a position or a power of responsibility. That's what you give. You give this to somebody. So the option is option C. Dash by people's perception, it seems that democracy has succeeded in India. Our options are making, planned, going, liked, following. Dash by people's perception. Again, we are paying attention to the surrounding words. The blank is followed by a preposition. So I need to quickly look at these options and see which word I can ideally fit with by. Is it making? Is it planned? Is it going? Is it liked? Or is it following? Here again, we're applying grouping of words, collocations. We've heard people say this phrase in various situations or circumstances. So which one do you think it is? Which of these goes with by ideally and what meaning does it give? So basically in the context, let's understand the meaning that the context is giving actually. So it's addressing people's perception. So generally, you're basing an opinion or a decision or a judgment on something, right? So I need a word that gives that meaning. So in this context, we're basing it on people's perception. And then we say, it seems that democracy has succeeded in India. That is correct. Going by, right? Going by people's perception. So when you say going by whatever, right? You're basing it on either an opinion or a decision or a judgment on something. Let's look at a couple of example sentences to understand this better. The usage of this phrase, going by. So if I say going by what he said yesterday, I would say he is about to resign. So this person probably would have shared something that gives you a hint or a knowledge that, this is what the outcome is going to be. This is what is going to happen because of what he or she shared. Right? So going by what he said yesterday, so you're basing it on what he had shared, what information he had shared yesterday. I would say he is about to resign. Yeah? This year, the number of candidates appearing for the examination has dash. So the options that we have is disturbed, crushed, broken, dwindled, disintegrated. So keep in mind, here we are talking about what's the highlighting. I'll give you the clue, right? The key word in the context is the number. We're talking about the numbers here, right? So this year, the number of candidates appearing for the examination has, what do you think would be the option? Keep in mind, we're not referring to the candidates as such, but we're focusing on the subject is the number. So can the number be disturbed, crushed, broken, dwindled or disintegrated? What's it going to be? Which of the option would be right? So which of the option basically gives you the meaning that something is less in number? Alright, so obviously when we're referring to number, it can't be disturbed, right? That's an emotion that you go through. Crushed again is an emotion. Broken, in this context, it's a illogical fit. Dwindled would be our answer, right? When you say something is dwindling, you're saying it's growing less in number. Now, all of these are negative words, basically. Disintegrated, again, we're talking about something that decomposes or decay, not the right fit for the clue word number. So, the right fit is dwindled. This year, the number of candidates appearing for the examination has dwindled. Suresh concurred dash my views on all matters. So, our keyword being here to concur, which is to agree, right? So, ideally, what word will I link or connect with agree or concur? Is it by, is it to, is it for, is it with, or is it upon? So we're talking about verb plus preposition collocation here. So Suresh concurred. What's going to be your option? So basically we need something that gives the meaning of agreeing dash someone or something. What's the right preposition here? So I'm going to write a couple of statements. I want you also to fill that for me. So if I say, do you concur dash that statement? Apart from the one given here, I'm just writing a couple of other sentences to help you decide which of these prepositions would be the right fit to associate itself with the word concur, right? 4 other judges dash with, okay, I gave the answer here in this. So anyway, let me write it down. Concur with his verdict, right? So both the sentences, it's going to be with. Suresh concurred with, agreed with my views on all matters. Do you concur with that statement? 4 other judges concurred with his verdict, right? So these are verb plus preposition collocations. Again, for those of you who don't know, and if this is a new word, it's nothing but grouping of words where 2 or 3 words come together, right? And we've heard people use it repeatedly in various situations.